Hey, we're back with another episode of Chopping It Up with ... But before I get into the name that comes after the ... every few episodes, I need to set the stage for you listeners and viewers, because otherwise we never talk to you. If you hear for the first time, it's just a series of conversations with superstars who are in the leverage sales, direct selling, party plan, MLM space. They're big kid conversations, explicit language, real world locker room talk. And I just get together with some of my friends who are brilliant people, and we have a conversation. And this is actually a project that comes out of duplicationnation.com, which is a new project I'm doing with Jaime Loquier, just creating a media company to support the best practices in our profession, feature the good guys and good gals, teach people real world skill sets. I will say a couple of quick resources and then we're going to jump into it. But if you go to duplicationnation.com, go down to the bottom, you'll see MLM Bootcamp. It's a free 3-week survival training, like the basic training you'd get if you join the Navy SEALs, but instead of the Navy SEALs, we're talking about direct selling. How do you survive? How do you prepare? How do you train yourself? So that's free. You should have everybody on your team on that. And then you'll also see a box there for a paid newsletter, which is called MLM Confidential. And that is not for everybody. That's for leaders. And it's a subscription product, comes out once a month, segment on duplication, segment on leadership, a personal challenge. And then we have a session called The Dish, which kind of keeps you up to date on what is going on with the people and the companies in our space. So this YouTube channel, you may be, if you're listening on the podcast, we're on all the major platforms, and then we put up a video version of this on the YouTube channel of Duplication Nation. The audio podcast is Duplication Nation MLM. So with all that out of the way, I want to chop it up with ... a superstar in the profession who has been with the same company for 18 years now. And every time that I know of, he's usually at the top of that company. And delightful guy, brimming with wisdom and insights, and one of the people who have helped advance our profession. It is none other than Jordan Beach Money Adler. So up, Jordan. Hey.
You know what, Randy? I just have to say this before we start. I guess we've started, but I just have to say this before we start. I used to watch you as I'd been in network marketing for years and never signed a single person up. And I used to watch you from the stage, and I bought your book, How to Build a Multi-Level Money Machine, many, many, many years ago. What year did you write that?
I wrote that in 96, I think.
Yeah. So it was right around the time I started to get a little bit of traction. I think I signed up my first distributor in 94, late 94 was when I signed up my first distributor, but I'd been involved in the profession since 81. And I'd been hearing your name, and I'd listened to your audio cassette tapes and all that. And I used to just admire your philosophies, your approach. I learned so much from you, and I probably gave your book away at least 100 times over the course of the years. But it's to be here now, however many years later, 40 years later, talking to you like this is pretty astounding to me. So I just want to thank you, and I'm excited to be here and having this conversation. We've known each other for a while now, but just to look back, flashback, go back in time, and to remember those days, it's kind of cool that we're here and we're still alive and we're still kicking.
It is cool. And, you know, there's a cliche, the years have not been kind, but for you and me, you know what? I think the years have been very kind
I think
indeed.
so too. And you know, when you're in your 30s, you imagine that when you're in your mid 60s, that you're like the old guy with the beard sitting in a rocking chair, you know. I guess it didn't turn out exactly like that, but I like the way it turned out better.
Yeah, same for me. I was actually in a hot tub with a couple of guys, and one guy started a conversation. So if you're in a hot tub, there's no way to, I'm not a talk to strangers kind of guy, strike up, very private, introverted. But so he starts this conversation. There's no way for me to escape because I'm in the hot tub. And he said something. I was probably 25 or 23 or something like that. And he said, yeah, life really begins at 50. And I thought, what the fuck is this crazy guy thinking? Life begins at 50. You're dead by the time you're 50. Because this is what I'm thinking. And he said, so I guess my quizzical look, he said, no, I'm serious. I mean, I can see but I used to think like you do. But, by the time you're 50, you've actually figured out who you want to be in life. You've probably put together some money enough that you can actually live a nice life. And that's when your creativity and your exploration and your development really takes off. And I thought the guy was so crazy, but I really believe that was true for me. I feel like my life really started hitting on all the gears only after I was 50.
Yeah, I felt that in my mid 30s, and then I felt it again in my 50s, where I felt like I was in a really good place, where I could really, again, like you said, just be able to express creativity, because I'm in a place now where I don't have to fight for the money so much. I don't have to work for the money so much. I don't have to chase it so much. And so it puts you in a mental state where you can really, and you teach, and it's important to see if you can get yourself into that mental state before you get to 50. So that you can be in a point where you attract, where you can attract the abundance long before you have it, long before you really have acquired the material things that you're looking for, so to speak.
That's why I do the work I do. If I could help somebody discover that when they're 40 or 30 or even 20, it's like last night I was watching American Idol. I'm a sucker for all talent shows, singing, dancing talent, and I am just shocked at the talent. There's a 15-year-old girl on there this season. There's a 16-year-old kid, a guy, another one who's like 17. The stage presence, the confidence, the maturity, I just think when I was 29, 30, I was a hot mess. My life was a disaster. I lost my restaurant when I was 30. The IRS seized it. My health was horrible. My relationships were horrible. I was broke. And I'm looking at, so I always say, man, if I could share some of these lessons I learned and help people, like some of these kids I see on the talent show, I mean, they're really the same thing on The Voice. They have a couple of really young teens who have just world-class talent that, it's going to be crazy.
It is. And social media and YouTube have really been the platform to discover that talent. That in the past it was out there, but it wasn't fostered to the level it is today, because today you can learn anything from YouTube, right? You can learn anything you want from YouTube, but also the ability to discover talent that we didn't have before, where people can become famous on YouTube by their skills. And, it also made me think, when you were talking about that, Randy, it made me think of Steven Tyler and Tom Jones. So these guys, Steven Tyler and Tom Jones, both of them have constantly had to reinvent themselves over the years, obviously. I mean, Steven Tyler went through a lot of drug and alcohol rehab multiple times. And Tom Jones, my mom was really into Tom Jones when I was a kid. So, and I couldn't stand the guy. Like, I'd watch him. I'm like, I don't understand what she sees in this guy.
My mom had every album he ever did. Why, Delilah, everything.
Yeah. So he was a big deal. So my mom was gone. Tom Jones was coming to Vegas. I had no interest in him as a kid, but he was coming to Vegas. And one night I had the night free, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go see Tom Jones. In honor of my mom, I'm going to go see Tom Jones. So I bought one ticket. I sat in the first row, and he was really good. And in the concert, this was probably 12 years ago. In the concert, Tom Jones said that he's going to experience a rebirth, and he's going to become a big famous star again. And I didn't believe it. He was great. He was phenomenal, but I didn't believe it because the guy's old. He was already old. But today, I don't know if you've seen, he's on The Voice, and he's like the OG. Tom Jones is like the OG. And it's inspiring to me to see guys like Steven Tyler and Tom Jones and how they've continually, and Sylvester Stallone. I mean, that's another example, how they've continued to reinvent themselves and rebirth themselves to a point where they create a whole new level of success and contribution that, most people, they're like one-hit wonders, or they don't even make it that far because they give up on their dreams.
Of like all my rock bands, Aerosmith is like my personal favorite.
Me too.
So there's a show, Steven Tyler. I've got access to backstage. He rolls up in the limo. He gets out of the limo. He's puking all over the parking lot.
Oh, wow.
He's been, high all night, drinking all night. He's a complete mess. He gets on stage and he rocks the Casbah. I mean, just you flip a switch. And I thought, this is really horrible. We always say, hey, kids, don't do drugs, because if you do, these bad things. And I'm like, he is like the opposite. Nobody partied harder than him.
No.
And and of course, now he's sober, and he's, that's why he was actually a judge on American Idol one season, because he called his agent and said, find me something to do to keep me sober, something that will challenge me. And so that's why he became a judge one year.
I got to show you something, Randy, right around my computer here. I got to grab something. Hang on.
I know what it is, because I know you.
You know what it is?
It's going to be a picture of you with Steven Tyler and Joe Perry, right? Yeah.
There it is.
Yes, I remember when you put that on Facebook when it happened.
Yeah. So he's, and again, it's like and then there's a lot to learn from people that have been around for many years like that. I mean, I look at one thing Steven Tyler always used to do, and I didn't realize he was doing it back then, but he did the backstage pass thing. Not very many artists do that, where you can, pay a little extra money and go backstage and meet him and talk to him. And he's very personable and very social. And there's a lot of value in that for his fan base.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to learn regarding in your network marketing career as well, around just little simple things like that. Meet the people.
Absolutely. Yeah, and Tom Jones is like he is an OG. He's still killing it. Sly,
he's good.
Sly is now, he's spinning off. I think it's Creed 3 is out now, or just about to come out, and he just
crazy.
He's done really well. What I wanted to get to quickly with you, was we both shared the stage at many mastermind events. And you used to tell a story about your credit card debt. And you had a very visual demonstration. So I'm wondering, do you still tell that story, and can you share it?
Yeah, I still actually, in the other room, I've got the credit cards. I know exactly where they are. So I back in the old days, used to be, if you had one credit card with a $300 limit, let's say you're 21 years old and you got one credit card, they usually, in good faith, they give you your first credit card just to see if you can handle it. And this is how it was back then. And if you paid your payments on time and you stayed on top of things, they'd send you applications that were pre-approved. And the application started pouring into the mailbox. And I probably listened to a cassette tape that talked about the value in having credit. And so I started ordering these cards and getting as much debt potential as I could. And I ended up with 22 over the course of about 5 years. I was in my 20s. I had 22 credit cards. And I had big dreams, and I was getting involved in different network marketing companies. The first book I ever picked up was at a garage sale for 25 cents. It was my first introduction to residual income and leverage. And that was Don Faila's book, The 10 Napkin Presentations, right? So that was probably, Randy, I'm going to ask you, how many books back then in the early 80s, how many books had been written on network marketing back then?
Not a lot. You had Faila.
5, 4, yeah.
John Kalinch had a series. He had 4 or 5, John Kalinch, the late, great John Kalinch. I think John Fogg really set the standard when he wrote The Greatest Networker in the World, which sold a couple million copies. And because it was
Richard Poe was in the 90s.
Early 90s, my God, Richard Poe, who probably, he didn't really know the business, but he saw it from the outside and attacked it as a journalist. And so people loved that credibility of like this third party person talking about the business. I can't think of much else beside that.
Maybe three or four or five books back then. Today, there's thousands and thousands and thousands of books. Back there were just a handful. So I got my hands on this book and I read it, and it inspired me. But I started getting credit cards because I didn't make much money. I was making under $14,000 a year. So I didn't have money to get involved in network marketing companies and things. So I started doing it on the credit card. Started buying product on the credit cards, going to events on the credit card. I probably bought a number of your books on the credit card, and I racked up $36,000 in credit card debt on 22 credit cards, maxed them out with the exception of one. All of them were maxed out except for one. And I was told by an accountant that I needed to file bankruptcy, and I never did. My 12th network marketing company, I started making money. And by the end of my first year in my 12th company, in today's world, nobody would laugh. But my 12th company, my 11th month, I was making $180 a month, about $200 a month. And then by my 33rd month, I was over 30 grand a month. But I didn't have to file bankruptcy. I kept barely making my payments. And then I finally ended up paying off my cards. It took me 3 years, paid off every credit card, cut them all up except for 2, one for personal and one for business. And I pay them off every month. And I've been literally now for 30 years, I've been paying my credit cards off every single month. I use them a lot, but I pay them off every month, 2 of them.
Yeah, I'm the same. So, I use them like crazy because I want the frequent flyer miles or the hotel. Right. And then, but you got to pay them every month. If you don't, it's worse interest rates than the mafia, right? I mean, it's crazy. Most people, if they sat down and did an inventory of what the interest alone payments they're making on those credit cards, 31, 32, 33% annual interest. It's just, you know, and as soon as they pay it down a little, they're going to get a credit increase, just like happened to you. They're going to suck. Hey, you're doing such a good job. We've increased your limit, and it's a narcotic.
It is a narcotic. And I think that there is a level of addiction when it comes to spending money on credit cards. I don't know. I've got a few things I want to talk to you about, Randy, but one in particular is, I'm here in Vegas. I'm on the 37th floor of the Waldorf in Vegas on the Strip right now. I had this place for 10 years. I don't own it. I lease it. But, we're supposedly living in a recession right now. And maybe we are, maybe we're not. Prices are definitely going up. I even get a little sticker shock recently, and I don't get sticker shock, but I recently have been getting sticker shock on certain things that I just can't believe. When you pay 28, I'm not a drinker, but once a month I'll have a drink, and I don't even drink the whole drink. However, it's $28 for a drink in Vegas right now, $28, which I just can't even imagine, but that's what it is. My question is this. Right next door is Crystal's Mall. Crystal's Mall is supposedly the most expensive mall in the United States. And the average sale for a consumer there, not not individual sale, but the average consumer that buys stuff other than Starbucks and the Ocean Club restaurants, the average sale purchases is $40,000 per customer at the mall. So it's a high-end mall. You got Tom Ford and all those kinds of places. And there's lines of people waiting to get into these stores. There's more traffic on Las Vegas Boulevard than I've been here in 10 years. The shows are all sold out for weeks in advance. The nice restaurants are sold out weeks in advance. I just don't understand, where is all this money coming from? It's the MLM crypto deals. That's where it's coming from.
I do believe we are in a worldwide recession, but I believe that it's not as apparent because of this issue we just talked about, the credit. That, if you look at the, Club 11 in Miami, right? Go behind me 2 miles, you're going to see Club 11, one of these go-go joints with a bottle lap dance club.
Yeah.
They would have these crypto bros come in and buy a $500,000 evening with cryptocurrency.
Right.
Those guys are long gone. So the people who cater to that market, they're crashed, right? But still, the high-end stuff, like you say, I book hotels. I want a nice suite, a corner suite, a nice view, whatever. I was just booking one 2 days ago and sold out. I had to go to like my 4th hotel to get the kind of room that I wanted. But I think it's because, and I know it's because I see the statistics, the amount of credit card debt, the decrease in savings, just people are, I think there was this pent up demand for 2 years. Everybody was locked down because of the pandemic, whether you wanted to be or not. Even if you didn't believe in the, COVID, there was no place to go because everything was closed. Right. You couldn't spend money if you really wanted to. And now there's like this pent up demand exploding, and people are maxing out those credit cards, and they're getting more credit cards and more. I'm just shocked. I get my groceries delivered with Instacart, and I check out and they say, would you like to finance this in 4 payments on Klarna or whatever?
Wow.
And I'm thinking, there was something else I just bought the other day. And it was, would you rather finance this with 5 payments of, and I'm like, these are, the last thing on earth you should ever be financing is your groceries. And I don't say that to be mean or snarky or judgmental. I get, if you are a single mom raising a kid or 2, and you don't have enough money for food and diapers, and you had a chance that might be a lifesaver for you. But the fact that you're in that position is horrific, and we have to change it as quick as possible, because, watch these things on TV and it's like, living room, no payments for 3 years, buy your car, no payments for 2 years, lease a car, 0 money down, $300 a month. And then 5 years later, then the car is broken down. They're so upside down, they still owe $15,000 more on the car than it's worth. And then they will roll over that debt and get you, because they want to get you in a new car and a new financing. And if your house is underwater with your mortgage, they'll roll that over and give you a bigger mortgage. And you just they will allow you to get deeper and deeper and deeper in debt.
That's a bigger business than the actual sale of that's a much bigger business than the actual sale of the products people are buying.
It really is. And that's where, at some point, the bubble has to burst. That's what I keep telling everybody who will listen in direct selling, we're going to be in the golden era this next 2-3 years, as the like, right now, I was just reading today about, the Speaker McCarthy here is trying to raise the debt ceiling and how many votes does he have? And we go through this song and dance every year.
Yeah.
The deficit gets bigger every year. It's a joke. It's the worst Ponzi scheme in the world, governments, right? Social Security, things like that. But at some point, you cannot finance it any longer. At some point, you can't even make the interest payments. And I think that's there's going to be a big burst of that around the world. And we're go ahead.
Yeah, none of us have ever experienced that in our lifetime. So how does somebody prepare for that?
To me, I'm keeping my gunpowder dry. I am just socking away money. I am cash, liquid assets. Okay. I'm, doing that. I really have looked at, and I'm building foundation. Like for my business, this is a media company, my direct selling business. I'm like, and I pay cash for everything, cars, homes, everything. I don't want any debt. And I got away from that during the pandemic because I was supporting like 5 different families. And, I'm like, okay, I think I made some poor financial decisions out of emotion in the pandemic, but now it's time to get back on track. And I'm doing that. And, but I think now is the time for people this is when you want to put a season or 2 of work in your business to, talk to your family, make a deal. Hey, I need 2 seasons. I'm going to miss some family time, some personal thing, but let me run with this for 3 months or 6 months. And then, hey, the whole family, we're going to go to Disney World, or the whole family, we're going to take a cruise or whatever. That's what I think people should be doing right now.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like if you knew that as you get older, you know that there's some impending things that are going to happen to you as you get older. You just know that there's certain things that are going to happen to you. Your body's going to break down at some point.
Yeah.
And so what do? You have to at that point go, to prepare for that, I got to really take care of my health. And so what does it look like? What does your health look like? And so that means the things that, you're talking about, Randy, it's, conserving cash, freeing yourself from the connections and the ties that you have to the system that controls you, because it controls your bank account.
Yeah.
All those kinds of things. But yeah, that's good. I have another topic I want to talk about. Can we go there?
Yeah.
All right. So I was at a mastermind that I was part of for a number of years. You probably know the person that does the mastermind, and I was at my 5th one, my last one. I haven't been to one in a while. My last one with this particular group, all network marketers, all 6-figure, 7-figure earners. And the last one that I went to, this was a really interesting experience, and I'd love to get your take on this. The last one I went to, half the group was under 30. Many of them were in Forex trading. Most of the group under 30 had been with their companies for 2 or 3 years. The average income was probably $30,000 a month. They've been with their company for 2 or 3 years. And then there was an opportunity for each of us to get up in front of the room and give a 3-minute, our best training tip, 3 minutes. And about 30 of the 100 people were there. So there were 100 people there, 50 of them were under 30. All of them were 6-figure and 7-figure earners. Most of them have been with their companies for 2 or 3 years or more, mostly 2 or 3 years in that group. The older group had been with their companies for 10 years or 12 years or 15 years. I was 100% sure that my idea would win. Like, I was 100% sure. It was an idea that it was just an idea that I had implemented over the years, involving networking the network and a specific example. And I got up there, and it was a voting thing where everybody got to vote. I took last place. I thought I was going to take first place for sure. But here's what I learned. I took last place. My idea took last place, but you got to remember who was voting. The
Right.
people that were voting were 50% of the room was under 30. And
Right.
my idea, so here's where it got interesting. I learned in that session that nearly 100% of the under 30 crowd had never set up an appointment, had never given a presentation, and does not need to follow up. That's not how they build their business today. Now, granted, a lot of them were in the Forex trading area, not all of them, but a lot of them were. Some of them were in product, but none of them are doing the old school set up appointments, build relationships. They don't do that. What they're doing is their strategy is in a year, build 300,000 followers on Instagram or on TikTok, and then just live your life, share your life on social media. That's what they do. And it hit me like a ton of bricks, Randy. I had no idea that the model had changed that much. And I would just like to hear your take on it from your observation in the marketplace.
Okay. You may not like my take.
Here we go.
A lot of people won't like my take. I think
I know what you're going to say, but I really want to hear what you think about all this.
Yeah. I think it's a false positive. Like the Forex trading deals. They're not legitimate direct selling companies, 99 out of 100 of them. The MLM crypto companies, they're not legitimate direct selling companies, literally 100 out of 100, because it's not possible to those two business models to exist legally in a civilized country. At this point, if you're in an MLM crypto deal, you're either ignorant, you're a criminal, or you're both. There's no innocent. Well, no, my sponsor told me that this was legit because his brother-in-law is a lawyer and his lawyer told him that. No, there's no excuses.
Hey, the AGs are signed up in the deal.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Right. So the thing is, if you are the right telegenic personality, you can get those 300,000 followers on Instagram, and you can show the Lambos and the private jets and the dinners at, you were at Coachella last night watching, whatever, and you're in Ibiza for this, and you're at South by Southwest, and your life is just a dream thing. And you will attract followers you will find ways to monetize them. But are you adding real value? Is there a real product getting to an end consumer providing real value? Andrew Tate is the perfect example of this. He has mesmerized millions of people, and they're like, wow, this is particularly young men, men from 17 to 27 are so impressionable by this bullshit. And that's who you see in all those crypto scams and those Forex exchanges, is a huge demographic of young, alienated, isolated young men. It's like the bigger issue is they don't know how to have a conversation. How many of them, for guys who haven't seen, I did one of these with Bricia Licari, and we were talking about this, the number of 30-year-old virgins, where they're not virgins because they have a religious belief, or they're saving themselves for marriage. They're virgins because they don't know how to talk to a girl in person. They don't know how to make a conversation. They're not socially skilled enough to go out on a date. They can only, message people on apps and watch pornography and masturbate, and it's like millions of them, right?
Yeah.
That's like the demographic you see because like I do so much work in Latin America, right? Mm-hmm. This is where the crypto scams are blowing up. Places like Argentina and Peru, where like Peru is a third world country. Lima is an amazing, beautiful, cosmopolitan city, but there's like 3 stoplights in the whole city. It's the Hunger Games just to drive to the shopping mall. And the shopping mall, you're going to see guards with AK-47s. And if you make $15,000 a year or more, you live in a gated community with armed guards. All right. And you still fear for your life. Right. So these crypto scams have come in there. I literally yesterday morning was having a conversation with a friend about one of these MLM crypto scams. And the guy was in the room when they were getting Zoom calls from people in Argentina. Because what they do is, it's just hype. And so this is one of them. And they're active right now. Go Global is active doing this. And they're telling people, hey, don't you have a mortgage on your house? Is there money on there? Yeah, your house is worth 200,000. Your mortgage is only 110. If you get a second mortgage and give us another 60,000, we're making 300% a year, 3,000% a year. And then of course, when the scam dries up, then they say, well, we're pausing payments for 6 months.
Right.
Or, we were hacked. And so we have to freeze the assets and we can't do any payments. And we're hiring OJ to find the killers in the meantime. But this is a great opportunity for you to buy more tokens because you can lock in this rate. And then, so like, this guy was in the room when these people are calling in from Argentina saying, no, if you stop these payments, we're going to get killed. And we don't mean like, we're not speaking figuratively. If you don't release these payments, we're going to get killed in Peru, in Ecuador, in these places. So there was a case of 2 brothers who got kidnapped and tortured. And they got the first one and they were torturing him and cutting him up and sending the video to the other one. And then they finally... It's
like cartel shit. It's cartel shit.
It's not like cartel shit. It is cartel shit.
Yeah.
This guy Reynoso, who was just arrested in Mexico City while I was down there a month and a half ago, he's in the cartel. They arrested him for money laundering and drug running and for the cartel there in Mexico City. And he was a big guy in Omega Pro, which became the Go Global. He's a narco trafficker. And I saw this in Vietnam. We had somebody who joined our company. This is back when I was with Agile. Had this person come in, from a couple from Asia, and they got a cooked leg, sweetheart deal. They made all kind of insider deals. And then they set up these people, and they set up this way to game the system. They had everybody borrowing $10,000, buying kits to qualify people under other people under other people.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. And so our general manager couldn't go to work anymore because the mafia was the people, the mafia there were the people who were lending the money to these. They would say, hey, go here. They'll lend you $10,000. You buy this kit. You're instantly a diamond director. You're going to get the pin. You're going to walk across the stage. And as far as I know, the first lady who started the thing, as far as I know, she's still on the run, afraid
she's missing, for like 4 or 5 years, right? 4 years, something like that.
Well, I mean, no, you're thinking of Rula, the OneCoin lady. Yeah, no, I'm talking about one of the distributors with Agile that was in my company in this other line, who either she's dead, I don't know, I hope not, or she was on the run the last I heard because of the organized crime. And that's who's in these crypto scams now, these Ponzi schemes. When
somebody needs to give them, go ahead.
Well, if you look at the kind of money that one coin was generating, of course it's going to attract the highest level of cartels, because that's as good as it's better than running cocaine or running heroin.
Yeah.
It's literally more profitable because you don't have any product that you got to deliver.
Right.
It's the product is just bullshit. It's air.
Yeah, we had a guy when I was part of Excel. I don't know, do you know the name Gary Shockey?
No.
No. So Gary, there's an American Greed about Gary Shockey, and they actually have clips, old film clips of Gary on stage at our conventions. But nobody trusted the guy. He showed up to the convention by himself, but he made ambassador in 1 year. Most people, it took him 8 years to get to ambassador. He did it in 1 year, and he showed up at the convention and he had nobody there. It was just him. But he's getting recognized on stage as a new ambassador. And it's like, there's something just a little off here, right?
Right.
Well, he ended up he got involved in a whole bunch of different like scammy things, but he ends up, I guess, killing a guy on a boat in Arizona, and he ends up on American Greed. But somebody needs to give these people a tour of Lake Mead before they join the company here in Las Vegas. They need to take them down to Lake Mead, because that's where all the bodies are buried here in Vegas, and they're finding them almost every week. They're finding another body of a mobster that's buried under the lake. You know, so yeah, it's
well. Going back to your question, you know, that's what I think. There is so much of these. You know, a guy like Tate is like the Kardashians. You know, they become famous for being famous. They become social media influencers because they're a social media influencer. And if you know, like, you know, I could get 5 million views a week on Instagram. I know how to do that. I have the resources to do that. I can find, you know, I can put a cat on one of those robot vacuum cleaners and go around, and I can get a dog in front of me on the motorcycle looking like he's doing the handlebars, and I can get video of a dog on a surfboard, and you can play these games, and then I can do the, you know, the outrage political polarization game. I could do all of that.
You could get some fake boobs and a fake butt and get a lot of views that way too.
I could do that, right?
Yeah.
But at some point, you know, it's like, if you could be one of those guys in your mastermind, right, who's making $30,000 a month, and they're only 24 years old, and they got 400,000 Instagram followers, or you could be some boring old master coordinator with Shackley who has 850 people in their team and does, you know, 20,000 a month in income. You want to be the Shackley person, because they're going to be here 10 years from now.
Right.
20 years from now. These Forex people, I mean, there's, you know, in the new book, which I call Direct Selling Success, that's the book I wrote to replace the one that you originally bought, to reflect the new reality of the world today with social media and the new regulatory stuff and tech and how the business has changed. And I introduced the concept of the MLM zombies, who just amble from deal to deal, and they're dead, but they haven't laid down yet. And they just keep getting top-up deals and runway deals. And I know people who are still doing that. And I've seen some of them be in literally 12 or 13 deals in a single year.
It's crazy.
They get big pay, you know, money to join, and they get.
I know some of those people. Yeah.
And if they're on Instagram and you're showing your ride in your private jet and your $500,000 watch and you're bling bling this and you're bling bling that, the market is so unsophisticated. The young male demographic who's alienated and scared and lonely, and even made worse after the pandemic, right? And you're a young person in Peru, Ecuador, San Salvador, Costa Rica. I mean, if you make $1,500 a month in San Salvador, you live like a king.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see some guy on, like this Reynoso guy, the guy who just got arrested, the narco trafficker, he's had a huge following on social media, a couple million followers on Instagram. And that's all it was, is these lavish mansion lifestyle. And you're sitting in the barrio of San Salvador, and you know, on your cheap counterfeit Apple phone, and you're able to get some broadband at the neighborhood bodega, and you see the video of this guy. It's like, how could you not? And so that's where the people in Latin America right now who are losing their homes, who are committing suicide, who are getting kidnapped, who have their life destroyed by these scams. That's really why Jaime and I started duplicationnation.com. That was our motivating thing.
That existed in the 80s and 90s. It's just magnified times 1,000 right now because it's so accessible. It's so easy for somebody to start a deal today. And also, of course, the cryptocurrency component to it. But we used to see that. I mean, we used to,
but we didn't have social media that could amplify it by 100x, you know, and that's the difference today. If you're savvy enough to game this, you know, because again, like if I do those, you know, dogs on the surfboard and the cat on the Roomba and all the stuff, or I do the Trump versus Biden, you know, polarization, and I build up that following, and then I start introducing this stuff, it's just like, it's like shooting fish in a barrel with a bazooka, right?
And then so somebody who has a team, somebody who's building a legitimate legacy network marketing company, and they've got, you know, they have 1,000 people on their team, or a couple thousand people on their team. And then some of that kind of drips over into the United States. It usually starts overseas. It starts in Dubai or in one of the Latin countries, and then it spills over. So it's happening in the US. It's really enticing for people that are not educated on this stuff. And that's really what your mission is to educate people on the crypto scams and what's going on out there. But how do you think somebody can kind of like compete with that? So their team is growing, and then all of a sudden some people on their team hear about this, and then, you know, they lose a couple of their top leaders to this because they see all the money and they see the flash and the jets and the watches and the trips and all that. And then they've got their company where, hey, you sell a product and you make $20 a month. And they're over here going, I just made $2,000 in a day. So how does somebody who's running a team, that's a leader, that's actually in the hunt, building a business, how do they in the US compete with that? How do they handle that when that happens?
Yeah, this is the basis of a lot of my work right now, is exactly this question you raised. And that's where this education has to come in, because this was always true, right? If I can go 3 miles that way over to Liberty City, and if you're a kid growing up in Liberty City and you see the drug dealer makes $50,000 a week and your mom makes $211 a week, you say, why wouldn't I be a drug dealer? I'd be crazy to go work at Burger King, right? Or, hey, you know, this football player got a $5 million signing bonus. That could be me. I can just, so I don't have to go to school, I don't have to learn a skill. If I can just be a footballer, right? We've got to show people the real numbers. You know, if people knew the average length of an NFL player's career, legitimate length, if they knew the percentage of them that are cut before they ever make any money, if they knew that when they hear that this guy signed a $40 million contract, what they don't hear is like $3.5 million of that is guaranteed, and the other, you know, literally 37 million of a $40 million contract can be negated. Just like if he blows his knee out at practice, that's it. That's never coming. It's, you know what I mean? We have to educate people like that in our space. Like, okay, the guy who the brother of the crypto queen, who's wandering around the world on her yacht as a fugitive right now.
Right.
He's in prison right now, waiting for his final sentence to be determined. They claim he was making $20 million a month. Okay, $20 million a month. Well, what the government is pushing for right now is a 60-year prison sentence. 60 years. So we have to show this 23-year-old kid, okay, really think about this. Would you be willing to make $20 million a month and think of all the sex and drugs and rock and roll you could buy every month with $20 million? But no, 11 months in, there's going to be a knock at your door.
Judgment Day.
And you're going to then spend the next 60 years of your life, and you're probably going to die in prison. That's the real education we have to get out there.
Yeah.
I have
go ahead.
Well, here's the other thing I want to add to that is when you and I were making our hay, if somebody did join a bad deal, they got suckered in, they didn't know better, or they were just greedy and they thought I've had people tell me, yeah, I know this is a pyramid thing, but I'm going to have a good run with it. And after that, I'll find something legitimate to do. But right now, if I could make a quick $2 million, I've literally had people tell me that, right? And what happens back then was the company got closed down and the owners went to jail and the distributors were fine.
Right.
That's no longer the case. The message we have to get out now is now the company gets closed down, the owners go to prison, but the top distributors get a visit from the FBI or the AG or whoever, and they say, okay, you have made $4 million in an illegal pyramid. So this $4 million is all ill-gotten gains, and we want it back. So we want your house, we want your cars, we want your boat, we want your motorcycle, and none of them have the money to give back because it's all stupid money to them. They've had no financial education. They spend more than they make. The person who made $4 million in a pyramid probably spent $5 million living because their credit kept increasing, right? And then they say, and by the way, you claimed this $1.5 million worth of tax violation of tax deductions for the trips you went on and the overseas, and those were all invalid now. So we're assigning a judgment against them. And there's no way out of IRS judgments.
Yeah, so if they didn't go to jail, for being in a pyramid deal, they're going to go to jail for tax evasion or not being able to pay the taxes back or something else.
Yeah, so that's the difference today. That when these trading deals, and now the new thing is, well, we're not actually selling cryptocurrency. We're selling perfume, and when you buy $10,000 worth of perfume, you get 100 of our tokens. And the tokens are worth $1,000 each right now. And we think they're going to go to $50,000 each because they're buying, they literally set up their own exchange. They set up their own website.
It's an FTX deal. It's fake money. It doesn't even, it's not real. Yeah.
And so but in the meantime, they're getting a statement every month. It's like Bernie Madoff. All those clients got a statement from him every month. And they're like, oh my God, Bernie has saved my life. He's taken my $2 million. He's turned it into $18 million. He's the most brilliant financial planner the world has ever seen. Of course, I'm going to keep sending my dividends back and reinvesting them. And when you have guys who own the New York Mets, who have to force to sell if you own the New York fucking Mets and you lost so much money with Bernie Madoff, you have to sell the team. that tells you the level of which, and if you watch that
It'd be like
HBO or Netflix documentary, we recommended that to our subscribers a while back. Jonak told me about it, so I watch it. It's like the people who, these are not sleazy people. These were honest, hardworking people, and they were recommended to Bernie Madoff by their friends, and everybody was talking about it, but it was all just fake money.
You know, I have a metaphor that I've used over the years. You may have heard me talk about it before. I have a degree in landscape architecture, so I had to take a lot of botany courses and things like that. And I learned a lot about plants in my college days. And one thing I learned is that oak trees grow very slowly, but the wood on an oak tree is extremely solid. It grows slowly and they live forever. And then the eucalyptus tree, which a lot of contractors, because eucalyptus trees are cheap, they're inexpensive. You can buy them at a nursery for nothing. And they grow extremely fast. And they'll turn a complex, like an apartment complex or a condominium complex, they'll turn it green very quickly because they grow so fast. But the problem is that things in nature that grow fast die young. You think about the dog breeds, the Great Danes have the shortest lifespan because they grow the fastest. Any dog that grows fast dies young. The big dogs die young. And that's how it is in life. And populations of insects that grow extremely fast, they're around for 2 or 3 days and they're gone.
Yeah.
That's kind of how life is. And so when you plant a eucalyptus tree, grows really fast. The branches are extremely brittle. They break off in storms and end up in the pools. The root system gets into the plumbing. They're just very trashy, inexpensive, fast-growing, die-young trees. And then you've got the oak tree that grows slowly that has a very well-anchored root system, not a shallow, brittle root system. So it's anchored and it's very solid and stable. And that's kind of like when we're talking about this stuff, that's what I see. I see these like Sam Bankman-Fried, the guy became a billionaire in 3 years, something like that, or 3 years. The guy became worth $30 billion. That's like a eucalyptus tree, turn green real fast. But what happens is extremely brittle. It dies young. And so when you jump into a network marketing company that is a startup that's growing extremely fast, where it's all around the hype and the glitz and the glamour and the flash, and the adrenaline and the adrenaline rush, those deals, look through our history, Randy, those deals are usually short-lived. They're usually less than 5 years. Most of the time they're less than a year. And then in today's world with the internet, and anybody can start a company on a shoestring. Heck, me and you today could invent a coin. I think you might have even talked about this in one of your reports or one of your videos. We could invent a coin right now and give it an arbitrary value of $200 a coin and tell everybody it's going to go to 1,000, and you got to buy a bunch of this. And before you know it, our valuation is 50 million, 100 million in a matter of days, because people are pumping money into it, but it's fake and it's going to die.
I love that analogy. That's a really apt analogy. That's why I say you really would rather be that lifetime master coordinator with Shackley that has a few thousand people, because those that 3,000 people in your Shackley group or your Manitech group or your Amway group or whatever, they have another 10 or 20,000 people who are actually buying product every month, reordering, true residual income based on a product or service that's getting to an end consumer, providing value. And it's not about the money. It's about the money comes from the value delivered. And that's the message we have to get through to people.
That's the litmus test, really. Is it a real product that people are going to want to buy anyway? Are they going to use it on a regular basis? And are they? As soon as it's not about a real product that people are actually getting value from, other than my money's going up, that's not real value, because it could go the other direction as well. But when somebody's actually consuming something and getting benefit from it, that is the cornerstone of a residual check that's going to pay you for years. That's a litmus test for a legacy company, right?
100%. And you're the living, breathing example of this. So for people who don't know, you're in this company that has cards and premiums. And I'll just say you're in send out cards. And I remember when you came on the scene with that, I thought, send out cards. I don't know if that's really going to work.
Right.
Service programs. At that point, nobody had ever done a service program. Now you've got utility warehouse and places that are killing it with utility, with service programs. And so your thing then was the cards, these imprinted cards, which you have been sending to me for 150 years. I get these beautiful cards from you you take a picture of me or me and you that you found from 15 years ago. And you say, hey, I just came across this or whatever. And you handwrite it and it gets handwritten on the thing and the company mails it out. And then you can send brownies. You still have that where they can send brownies and
all kinds of gifts. Yeah.
So, because Ivan Cisco used to send me brownies every year for my birthday.
Right.
I know he's going to be watching this show, and I'm just going to mention that Ivan hasn't sent me brownies in forever, and I have not.
He still uses our system, but I don't know if he's sending brownies or not. Yeah.
Well, he ain't sending them to me. He's actually going to be on one of these in a couple of weeks. It'll be published after this one.
Tell him I said hello.
I will. But so I was like, I don't know how that's going to work. But here it is, 18 years later, you still have this base. You still have this true beach money, this residual income, because it's built on a product that's getting to the end consumer. And so maybe talk about that business model a little, because it seems to me like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it seems to me like you have a much bigger retail customer component of maybe people who aren't really building, but it seems to me like you have a lot of real estate agents or insurance agents or professional people, dentists, doctors, lawyers, who they're not really building a business, but they love being able to send these cards to their client base. And if they're like a real estate agent, they use it to generate business. That's my view from the outside?
Well, it's yes. The truth is, Randy, we would not be here today because we've had many times in our 18 years, as all companies do, where we've had huge dips in recruiting, huge dips in technology. We've had technology issues in the past and things that in many companies, if you did not have a customer base that was using your product consistently, if we didn't have that, we would be gone. The reason we're here today is because we have thousands, actually hundreds of thousands of customers that use us every month. And to answer your question, it's all energy. It's the energy you're sending out every day. So like a legal firm, for example, that has a client base, they're going to continually send cards to that client base, maybe a couple, 3 cards a year, just to stay top of mind. Especially in today's marketplace, it's so competitive. There's so many different places you can go. If you're not in front of somebody the moment that they're ready to do business with you, then you're going to lose that business. Do you know the story of Joe Girard, the car salesman?
I do remember I remember the broad outlines of it. Yeah. Yeah.
So Joe Girard was in the Guinness Book of World Records 12 years in a row as being the greatest salesman in the world. And he wrote a book called How to Sell Anything to Anyone. He passed away a couple of years ago in his 90s.
But what Joe did is,
I read that book. Every single person that Joe met, Randy, if he had met you, you would receive a card from him saying, nice to meet you, but you wouldn't just receive one card. You receive a card from him every single month for as long as he knew you. And so it got to the point, this was old school before technology existed. It got to the point where Joe was sending out so many cards, handwritten cards, just quick ones, like, I like you, come in and see me, sign Joe, quick cards. He was writing so many cards that he had to hire a team of people. He was doing over 10,000 cards per month to his client base and to people that he had met. But here's what would happen, Randy. When you were ready to buy a car, you liked Joe, you trusted Joe, and you would go see Joe. If you had to sell a car, you'd go see Joe. If you had a friend that needed a car, you'd say, you got to go see Joe. I like Joe. And so that's really the concept behind it. It's just sending out positive energy in a way that's going to get noticed, not just a text message, not just an email that ends up in spam, but something that's going to really be meaningful. So that's really where the value is. And yeah, there's cool things you can do, like grab pictures from social media, drop them on a card, let people know you're thinking about them, add a gift, that kind of stuff. And that's so it's about acting on those promptings, those inner promptings to reach out to somebody in a way that's going to be meaningful. And so that's what we do. And we've sent out 300 million cards in the last 18 years. And people, it's crazy. I run into people that I haven't seen in literally 12 years that are like, yeah, I use your service every day. People that I don't even hardly remember. It's kind of crazy. And then when we go to corporate headquarters, it's like Willy Wonka. That's Willy Wonka right there. It's like Willy Wonka and the chocolate factory. I mean, we've got multi-million-dollar printers and UV coders and cutters and robots that stuff the cards into the envelopes. We're doing 50 to 100,000 cards a day. And so it's like a factory that's printing cards and stuffing envelopes. And when you go there,
like a factory. It's a factory.
when you go into the factory and see this, it's a temperature, humidity controlled room. It's a big room, like 40,000 square feet, with just all kinds of crazy stuff going on. It's amazing what it takes to get a card in an envelope printed, and every product that goes out the door is unique. Every single product that goes out is unique, and it's a $1 product. And but when you go there and see it and actually experience it and smell the ink on the paper and feel the humidity in the air in the sound of the machines running in the room, it's quite amazing. Just the energy, the positive energy that's created from all that. So that's really why we're here. Truthfully, I would not be here with this company 18 years later if it wasn't for a regular customer base that continued to pay me a residual check. We wouldn't be here as a company because we wouldn't have a revenue stream.
Right.
You got to make sure that your company produces a revenue stream, even if recruiting goes flat, because it's going to at some point.
Always. Recruiting will always have peaks and valleys. Customers are a given. They're constant. By the way, people need to see the episode, the Chopping It Up I did with Wes Linden. We talked about, because he remembered the story that I told when I opened up network marketing in Slovenia and Croatia. And so I told the story of the lady who won the first bonus card based on something I said about sending out cards and notes. And Wes
I'm going to go back and watch it.
Oh, yeah. Wes adopted it. He's done so well with it. And I thought, this just came yesterday, and I thought, this is so cool because I'm talking to Jordan tomorrow. This is not a send-out card. This is it is a Hallmark. But what a cool, this was sent to me by Danny Sparkles, who's just somebody who's been to some of my seminars and worked with some of my coaching programs, whatever. She still stays in touch. And this is a cloth shirt. Wow. That is on this card with, the Superman. Yeah, a real shirt. And I thought, what a clever idea. But she's a perfect example, just, of this principle that you're talking about, is just keeping yourself top in mind with people, developing that relationship. And you've just, like I say, you do it masterfully. I just have many cards from you over the years.
There's one thing that I noticed and learned from you, Randy, that I think has had a big impact on my life and my career. And that is, you're a storyteller. You tell a lot of stories. Like every message you convey, there's a story behind it. And I do that too. And a lot of that, I think, comes from, being around you long before I signed up my first distributor. You and John Milton Fogg, and, Tom Schreider used to do, he's a great storyteller. But that's a really powerful, it's a magnifier. Telling stories is a magnifier. And I wouldn't say it's just a double it or triple it magnifier. It's 1,000 times magnifier. When you can take a message that you want to convey and share it in a story, and you're really, really good at that. And I try. And I feel like sometimes I'm real good at it. Sometimes I'm not, but most of the time
I was literally, Jaime and I have this high level coaching program called the Prodigy Council. And yesterday was our meeting with the council. And the topic of that I was elucidating on yesterday was storytelling. And the power of storytelling. And every company that I consult with, I'm like, okay, what is the founding story of this company? It can't be that Jim was sitting in a bar with Joe and he said, you know what we should do? We should start an MLM company, which is how 90% of them start, right?
Right.
What is the problem that Jim was laying awake at 3 a.m. one night and said, God, if only I had a solution for this. And then he had this idea for a product. And then that's the founding story, because it's always going to be somebody sees your presentation on Tuesday night. What is the water cooler conversation when they go to work on Wednesday? Yeah. And they say, I was at this presentation last night and there was this lady there and she lost, 47 pounds in 2.5 weeks drinking this milkshake that tastes like cake, and it's a story. Or literally, when I joined Agile, I was the one who said, you know what this is? This is suspension gel technology. And I wrote
Did you come up with that phrase?
Yes.
You came up with that phrase?
And I wrote the CEO an email and I said, listen, go trademark this term, suspension gel technology. We built hundreds of millions of dollars on that story. Another company I work with, it was about creating the story of the ingredients from the Amazon and how the Amazon is the heart and the lungs of the planet, and the analogy with the human body and the nutrients, right? You've got to have a founding story and you got to have a product story. And I think why I got that so good at that is because I got to meet the legendary Bill Gove, who was the first president of the National Speakers Association.
Wait, did you say Bill Gould?
No, not Gould, Bill Gove. Okay. Gould is a whole different character. Okay. So this was Bill Gove, but Gould is another storyteller.
He was a storyteller.
Of those scripts, those skits he would do at his thing. I mean, he's off the chain, that guy. So Bill Gove, at that time, Gove, Bill Gove. If anyone Googles him, find him on YouTube, catch it. He's just was one of the greatest speakers in the world. And so he lived here in Florida. So he was in the chapter of the Florida Speakers Association when I joined in 1991. And I said, I'm going to be a trainer and I need to see what this speaking stuff is all about. And he just fell in love with me. I don't have any idea why. He just kind of adopted me. And he was like the father I never had. And he taught me, tell a story, make a point. And because they will remember the story, they will remember the point. Because he'd say, Randy, talk to someone after they come out, like we'd be at the NSA, the National Speakers Association convention. You say, talk to someone and they come out of a breakout room. Hey, how was that session? Oh my God, it was amazing. Oh, really? What was it? Yeah, it was the 27 secrets of success. Wow, cool. What were they? They don't know. Yeah. Let me check my notes. But he says, if you tell, like he had a story, the big red bus story, right? So he would tell this story and there was a point to the red bus story. And 15 years later, he'd be walking through the airport and somebody would say, oh, Bill Gove, I was there in 1969 when you told the big red bus story, That's where storytelling comes in.
So Randy, I joined as I don't remember what it was called, but it wasn't a member. I didn't have the money to be in the National Speakers Association when I was in my early 20s, but I used to go to their events. I met Cavett Robert.
Great.
Am I saying his name? Cavett Roberts or Robert?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was the founder of NSA, a true gentleman.
So you knew him?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So I don't know if I ever it crossed paths with you back then, but were you involved in the mid 80s in the National Speakers Association?
No, I never
No.
joined until 91.
Okay.
That's when
Yeah,
I started being a speaker, was 1991.
Yeah, but as you were talking, and I mentioned this to you, were you aware of my helicopter crash when before I sent that to you?
Well, no, I wasn't, but I will tell you, for people who don't know, we each put 4 or 5 points we want to talk to the other one about.
Yeah.
And number 2 on the list is helicopter. You have to share that story.
Well, like one of the things that I tell people in telling a story is the importance of, and there's like 8 or 9 or 10 things that you can include in a story to make it something that will leave an impact that's memorable. And one of those is drama. And so one thing so I'll try to make, it's a long story, but I'll try and breathe it up a little bit. I became a helicopter pilot about 8 years ago, which in and of itself, guys don't walk into a helicopter training company at school and say, in their 50s, saying, I want to be a helicopter pilot. It's guys in their 20s. So when I went in there and I was obviously, at that point, I was 57 years old, they kind of snickered a little bit. But it took me 2 years. I got my helicopter pilot's license. And the reason is because I'd sit up here in my condo and watch these helicopters giving tours and think to myself, wouldn't it be cool that when my friends came into town that I could say, hey, let's jump in the helicopter. I'll give you a ride around Vegas from the sky. And they'd be like, yeah, that sounds great. So I've probably given rides to, I don't know, maybe a couple hundred people that had never been in helicopters before. I'm not a commercial pilot. I'm not allowed to charge. So I don't get paid to fly helicopters. It's just a hobby. I decided I wanted a helicopter, and there's this iconic helicopter called the Bell 47. It's the helicopter. Yeah, it's the helicopter that has more stories than any other helicopter in history. First helicopter to carry a president, first helicopter to land on the White House lawn, first helicopter to be in a movie, first helicopter to be used for training in the military. It also is the helicopter that Elvis Presley took Anne Margaret up in Viva Las Vegas. It's the Batcopter in Batman and Robin. So it's the one with
isn't Marine One the presidential copter, a Bell copter?
It might be, but this is an older version. This is the Bell 47, right? But it might be. It's very possible that Marine One, I think, is the Bell helicopter. So this is the one that has the bubble, and this is what I wanted. Well, it's the helicopters. There aren't that many of them that are FAA compliant. So it took me. I hired a broker. It took me a good year to find the helicopter. I had to have it disassembled and inspected and shipped across the country and reassembled and all that. It cost me about $25,000 just to buy the helicopter. To buy the helicopter, it was $750,000. To get the helicopter from where it was in the swamps of Louisiana and put back together and ready to fly, it was about $25,000. To get it ready to fly, plus I had to go down to San Antonio, Texas, and get trained on this helicopter. I went down 5 times on this particular helicopter. Soloed in it one time. Just one time. This was 6 months after I bought it. I finally soloed in my helicopter, and it was a dream come true. I had met a guy 6 months prior that was introduced to me by a friend that was supposedly a commercial pilot. He had been flying for 20 years, flew every week in an A-Star, which is a much bigger helicopter than what I fly. He had a maintenance facility with mechanics that worked for him, and he owned a bunch of helicopters and talked the talk, and we got to know each other.
This is the story that I just had to have on this show, because where you're going next is just
you have no idea.
Continue, please.
You have no idea. So we smoked some cigars together. We had lunch a number of times, hung out with the guy, went down to the hangar a few times. He talked to all the other pilots and the maintenance guys at the hangar. And one day it was 108 degrees in June of 2019. And I said, you want to go for a flight in my helicopter? And he said yes. And so we go out to the airport. We push the helicopter out to the big H that's sitting on the tarmac there. It's got a wall behind it and a parking lot over here. And there's a big there's a 150-gallon fuel tank parked over to our left and a fuel cart that's attached to a little, golf cart type thing. And we pulled the doors off the helicopter because it was so hot, and get in there, start it up. It's got dual controls. And I lift the helicopter up off the ground. So we got our headsets on. We're hovering, sitting side by side in this area. And I said to him, because he had 10 times as many hours as I do, I said, do you want the controls? Because I wanted him to feel the helicopter. He said, yes. So I said, you have the controls. He says, I have the controls. Within a quarter second, Randy, I saw the sky. The helicopter tipped up and the tail flipped around within a quarter second. I mean, he was like completely out of control within a quarter second. I knew that when you read accident reports, people whose main rotor hits something while they're in the air, it doesn't matter if you're 8 feet off the ground or if your main rotor hits something, you're dead. Like everybody dies because the helicopter explodes into a million pieces. Well, I knew my main rotor was going to either hit the ground or the wall behind us. I knew it. And I literally in that moment said, this is it. I mean, I remember thinking to myself, and the next thing I know, 10 seconds later, it's raining fuel, like my fuel tanks, it's raining fuel. My face is sitting in fuel on the ground. My left shoulder is getting burned. And I hear people going, get the fuck out, get the fuck out. And they're pulling us out. And the guy's gone. Like I'm standing next to the helicopter, literally wondering if I'm still alive because the helicopter is unrecognizable, right?
Right.
And I'm standing next to it, and it's the fire department's there, and the news choppers are overhead, and the ambulances, and the FAA's there, and the NTSB's there, wanting to interview me and all this, and they want to talk to him, and he's gone, like vaporized. And so for the next few weeks, they're trying to get a hold of him, and I'm texting him, and he's texting me back. I never talked to him since then. He says he has everything. He has his logbooks, his medical certificate, all this, and he kept avoiding the FAA. And then 5 weeks later, they got him in. And while he was in the office, he lied to him for 15 minutes, saying he's a pilot, he's licensed, he's been flying for 20 years. They said they called me and they said, Jordan, how well do you know this guy? And I told them the story. And they said to me, Jordan, he's never flown a helicopter in his life. He's never been trained as a helicopter pilot. We have zero records of him anywhere in the FAA computer. And so he nearly killed me, destroyed my helicopter, cost me $250,000 out of pocket. And 1 week before the pandemic, they told me they were going to arrest him. They did a full investigation that lasted a year. 1 week before the pandemic, they said they're going to arrest him. And then the pandemic hit and everything got shut down. And he like home free. So and he has nothing. The guy doesn't even own a car. He doesn't own anything. He does not have helicopters. He's never flown in his life. But here's the point. Here's the point of the whole story. Now you'll remember that story. You'll tell that story to a lot of people, Randy. You'll remember it. Lots of people that are watching this, they'll remember the story. And the point is, and this is when it gets really, when the rubber hits the road. You've been there. I've been there multiple times. And when you're in it, it's easy. When you're not in it, it's easy to say, yeah, I get it. But when you're in it, it's hard. So here's what happened. My dream was to fly helicopters for many, many, many years. And I finally lived my dream, and I had a fork in the road. I could either let my fear control me or let my dream control me. And I chose to let my dream control me and move towards my dreams again. As scary as it was and as difficult as it was, I chose to get back up into the helicopter after 4 months. And I went with an instructor. I did everything. I flew perfectly. Everything was great. And I've flown at least 50, 60 times since then. I just had my biannual flight review last week. And I have some friends that I'm taking up in about a week. But, it's like when you're faced with things that shut you down in your business and in your life, we all have those. And you have to make a decision. If you want your dream, you have to make a decision that, like, what are you going to do with that? I learned some things. I learned one thing is that, God wasn't done with me. I knew that, obviously. Yeah. I had angels looking over me that day. I don't know why they scared him, to be honest. but it's just like, oh, by the way, here's another thing. When you see there's actually, I'll share this with everyone if you want to do this. If you go on YouTube, got a couple 100,000 views. If you go on YouTube and put in fake helicopter pilot crashes helicopter, fake helicopter pilot crashes helicopter, You can see a video of the crash because they had surveillance at the airport. So they recorded the whole crash, the whole hover, everything. You'll see the crash. You'll also read my accident report that I wrote, that I gave to the FAA. It's typed. You'll also see his handwritten accident report. And you'll see the FAA investigation. It's all on that YouTube video. About an hour long. Goes through everything. So it's fake helicopter pilot crashes helicopter. Now, here's the thing. One of the components of a good story is drama. Another component of a good story is stimulating the senses. Like in some of the things I talked about, the fuel raining down. Well, that's what actually happened. I could smell the fuel. I felt the heat of the pavement on my face. All these kinds of things are things that make, there's actually a bunch of things that make story powerful and memorable, but those are a few of the things.
Amazing. Yeah. What a story. All right. So since we're telling Jordan Adler transportation stories, I have to ask, what happened? Because I know you bought a Fisker, which was one of those first EVs, and you couldn't get any parts or service. Whatever happened with that? Are they still around?
So check this out. There's the Fisker was built in 2012, and they went out of business their first year. So they weren't around. They just built 1 year. They built 1,000 of them. 500 of them are broken down because there's no parts or they can't be fixed, and there's still 500 of them running. And I've got one of the 500 that are still running. I've only got 6,000 miles on it. It's so it's 12 years old. What is it? 11 years old, 12 years old, and it's got 6,000 miles on it. And I've had to ship it to Pasadena twice. There's a guy in Pasadena that will work on them. The shipping is more expensive than the actual repairs typically.
Right.
But I've taken a chance. I've got it downstairs, and I drive it, once or twice a month, usually just up and down the strip. And it could be a Tucker someday, or it might be in the junkyard. Who knows? But
so I didn't know I thought they were like maybe reorganizing or what. I didn't know they just went out of business after a year.
Fisker, the guy that built that car, started a new company called Fisker. And the new company doesn't work on the old cars. The new company has a new Fisker that's a better technology that actually looks exactly like the original Fisker. My car looks brand new. It smells new. I mean, I keep it really, really nice. And I drive it periodically, but it's a risk because if it breaks and there's no parts. I've got one part that broke that it's a brake sensor that it can't be fixed, can't be replaced. So not brake sensor, tire pressure sensor. So the tire pressure light is on, and there's no way to turn it off. Those
tire pressure sensors are the first thing to glitch on every car. My Challenger is a nightmare. My Range Rover, it's a nightmare.
Do you still drive Vipers?
No, I am now at the officially old enough age where I say, no, I'm not climbing down into a car that is 4 inches off the road. It's just too much on my back. Now it's all about I have this Evoque special edition Range Rover that was designed by Gloria Beckham for Land Rover. There was only 100 made, only 3 came to the US. Wow. And it's luxury. So I'm more about, and it's nice because it's got some pep, and I still have the Challenger. I have the Shaker edition. So that's like my Sunday softball driver.
Because you've always been into cars.
Always. Yeah. But now it's just, I'm at a stage in my life where the luxury is a little more priority than the speed.
Yeah. So is your daily driver, is it a Range Rover, did you say?
Yeah.
My daily driver is an FJ, Toyota FJ.
I don't know FJ. I don't know what that. I know.
The Toyota FJ. They stopped making them in 2014. I had a 2008 that I put over 100,000 miles on. Then I had a 2010 that I put over 100,000 miles on, and now I'm 2014, which is the last year they made them. And I love that car. It's so great.
Yeah. See, my Range Rover is the year they did it was like 2013 or 2015 or something. But I don't even have 30,000 miles on it because, you know, I had cars here, I had cars in San Diego, different cars, and I didn't drive, you know, so it's literally like showroom new. But it's the worst. It's the worst maintenance nightmare because if you need anything, it's $2,000. If you need an oil change, it's $2,000. If there's a little, you know, trouble light, and it's frequently $4,000. So
I had a Maserati Quattraport, and I think it was a 2003. I had it wrapped in black matte, and I took it in, and they told me the water pump was out, and because I was having a problem overheating, the water pump was out. They had to replace the water pump. Guess how much?
You can't shock me.
16,000. Now let me tell you why. In the Quattraport, they have to remove the engine. To get to the water pump, they have to remove the engine from the car, replace the water pump, and then put the engine back into the car.
It's just it's just insane. You know, the battery died on the Range Rover, and the battery was $1,600. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure the best battery in the world. Here's Die Hard, and it's $200. So I'm gonna get a Sears Die Hard, and I'm gonna have it delivered to you. And they're like, "Oh no, you can't. There's special wiring with this battery. It has to be the factory battery. $1,600." So literally, it's, you know. So at some point, I'm just gonna say, even though it's new, there's low mileage, the maintenance cost is so stupid that I just say, you know,
Randy, the price we pay for success, you know,
right? We're here crying and whining about it, and there's people who want to kill us right now. Speaking of success, talk about Beach Money. So Beach Money is your book, but it's really a lifestyle. So would you just talk about what that means to you a little, please?
Yeah, it's simple. There's nothing super profound about it because it's something that I think everyone dreams of at some point, but most people give up on. And that is the idea. Most people give up before they even start, right? The idea of being able to live life on your terms, live wherever you want to live on, and be able to do the things that you want to do with your life that are going to be good for you, for your family, for the people around you, and for the world. And that can be partially delivered through a passive residual income stream, wherever you get that from. There's lots of different ways you can create it. You can create it by buying vending machines. You can own multiple Subway franchises. You could invest in a business that throws off a dividend or a royalty. There's lots of different ways you can do it, or you can start a network marketing company. And when I started, I didn't have the capital resources. I wouldn't even have known how to get capital resources if I needed to. I grew up in a lower middle income family in the south suburbs of Chicago. My high school that I went to got shut down for gang violence a number of years later. It's not a super nice area. It's an okay area, but the home I grew up in was my dad bought it for $6,600, and I sold it when he passed away in his 80s for $10,000. The home I grew up in Park Forest, Illinois. And so I didn't have a model of success. I wasn't around entrepreneurs. But when I read Don Faila's book, The 10 Napkin Presentations, which is out of print, but he's rewritten it a number of times, I learned about residual income, and I learned about leverage. And then I started reading and listening to people like Randy Gage and Richard Brooke and John Milton Fogg and others. And I began to dream about what it would be like to have a passive residual income stream, income that flowed into my bank account every month, whether I went to work or not. I liked that idea long before I had it. I thought that would be to be able to flying meaning like not necessarily literally flying, but to be able to fly in your life, to be able to have the freedom to go where you want to go. My life has always been a metaphor of flying. And so when I learned about residual income, it's like this is what's going to provide the lift, is residual income. So I started aligning myself with businesses and ideas that would produce residual income. And it took me 10 years, 11 different network marketing companies, but I finally cracked the code and figured out how to get a new distributor signed up and get them launched, and how to get some customers, and how to provide a runway for people to build a successful business. And in doing that, my checks kept going up. And at some point I was able to make choices and decisions. Now the profits from my book, 100%, I don't know if you know this, Randy, but 100% of the profits from my book, Beach Money, fund a nonprofit called Kiva. Are you familiar with Kiva?
I do know that. And I actually had that as one of the things, because that's one of my favorite charities as well. Explain what it is.
Yeah, so Kiva is a micro-lending organization, probably the largest in the world, started by a woman named Jessica Jackley and her husband many, many years ago, probably 20 years ago. And they provide loans to entrepreneurs in developing countries all over the world, literally in every country in the world. So somebody wants to have a farm stand in a small town, a small village outside of Madrid, Spain, or Colombia, or wherever. Somebody wants to start a shoe repair shop and they need $100 or $200 or $500. They can get the money through the contributions from my book and others. And we've helped literally tens of thousands of companies start all over the world in developing countries as a result of this book. Hundreds of thousands of dollars in loan money have been provided. And once the money's in there, you can't pull it out. It's not in there to get a return. There's no interest on it. You just loan the money. The entrepreneurs put their stories on the website, and there's field partners. And so you can go on kiva.org and you can see the entrepreneurs all over the world. You can say, I want to loan $25 to this entrepreneur on their way to $200. Or I want to fund this entire loan for $500. And then you can actually get progress reports on the website of what, and you get emails as well of what they did with the money and how it was used. And then they pay the money back. And sometimes they want another loan for something else, but they pay the money back, and then you can reloan it out to another project. So some of my money has been recycled many times into different projects. So my assistant, Carrie, every week she goes on the website and she's taking the money that's getting paid back and loaning it out to new entrepreneurs that are starting businesses. So I wanted to take the revenue from, this is a dream, right? This is, for a lot of people, having residual income is a dream, and this helps people to create that. But I thought, wouldn't it be cool to take the money from the sale of this book and fund many dreams from the sale of this book? So that's what we've done. And it's been great.
The thing with Kiva is sometimes $25 isn't part of their loan. That's the whole loan. There are people that they need $25 and they can buy 6 chickens and then make the money from the eggs, or they buy 2 goats and they breed the goats and they sell the milk. I mean, ridiculously low amount of money can have such a profound difference. And like you say, that's what I love about it, because I'm all about free enterprise. And, we've created this entitlement mentality in the world where everybody just says, hey, I need it. You have it. You should give it to me. And that is not how to liberate people. That's not how to create prosperity. Prosperity comes from adding value. And so these micro loans are just amazing. $25, $75, $100. And like you said, they pay it back, and then you just pick a new project to lend it out to, and you just keep and that money. So you might put 100. So remember what he said, guys listening, kiva.org. You could put in $100 now, and 10 years from now, you might have reloaned that $100 out 57 times. I mean, it's amazing.
Right. Yeah, it's amazing. And 93% of all the loan money gets paid back, which is really interesting. Yeah. 93%. I wanted to share one more thing about the book that really excites me more than anything. I believe that the reason most people don't make it in network marketing is they don't believe it's really, truly deep down, they don't believe it's possible. And if they believe it's possible, they don't believe it's possible for them. It's like Orville and Wilbur Wright and the airplane. Long before people were flying, Orville and Wilbur, they were two of the guys. There were apparently a couple of other guys, but these two guys, Orville and Wilbur, they believed it was possible to fly. So they risked worldwide ridicule and death because they believed it. And today we walk on 747 to fly overseas, and we don't think anything of it. We complain if the air conditioner isn't, cold enough or whatever, right? Or if our seat doesn't recline far enough.
I flew the Concorde at Mach 2.2.
Wow.
Walking to the bathroom, people are sipping champagne, eating chocolate-colored strawberries at Mach 2.2. I'm walking, and we just take this for granted, like
sure. But so these guys, they believed it was possible, so they were willing to do the work. So here's what happens when people read my book. This is what they get from it. I can do this. When they're done reading my book, they go, I can do this. And there's enough stories in here that are implanted into their brain that they stick with it long enough to make something good happen in their life. So that's really what it is. I think that's a big part of it, is jumping through the hoops and walking over the broken glass to be able to get on the other side of it. But the only way you get there is if you keep believing, because as soon as you lose your belief and you start doubting, it's over, game over. Yeah.
100%. So listen, I've got to talk about Sir Richard Branson.
Yeah.
Because he was like the original Gary V, or the original Elon Musk, or the original whoever, meaning an entrepreneur who was proud of being an entrepreneur, became an incredible PR machine,
sure is.
built this became a billionaire. And his book, the original edition I read, Losing My Virginity, was one of the best classic, personal development for entrepreneur, inspirational books you could ever get.
Yeah.
So he went from Virgin Records to Virgin Cola, and Virgin Airlines was his, big thing. And of course, I'm a frequent, 7 million frequent flyer miles at current, just from the ones that have programs. I've flown many more than that. Richard has never made money with an airline. Every airline he has ever done has been a hot mess. He did Virgin Atlantic and Virgin Australia and Virgin this and Virgin US. And he would sell 57% to Delta or 43% to Delta. They would put 400 million into it. They'd lose their shirt. They'd sell it for a 200 million loss. He's left these dead bodies everywhere in the airline business. And I always say, how the fuck does he make it? Where does he make his money? Because he's certainly not doing Virgin record stores anymore. But I do know he was one of the guys who invested in the Ring doorbell, which became a unicorn. That was, I believe that's the biggest miss on Shark Tank. That was, the guy pitched it on Shark Tank. Yeah. All the sharks turned him down, but Branson went in and with other people and became a billion. So, but he's still intriguing to me. He's the most fascinating entrepreneur promoter, how to really get publicity. He does a lot of charitable work, and I just like the guy. So I know you signed up long time ago. You signed up for Virgin Galactic to go to space, and you get to spend time with him. So what is the deal with? So two things I want to know from you. What's the real deal with Richard, and how do you think this space trip is actually going to happen?
Well, I was there. There's so much to unpack with what the question you asked, Randy. There's so much to talk about. I was actually there when he went to space. So I watched him get into the mothership, and get into the spaceship that was attached to the mothership, and I watched him go up, and I watched the module come down, and the rockets fire, and I watched the trail of the rocket ship go into space. And then I was with him after he landed back safely on Earth, and had a little party for his Virgin team. I was right up front with him. He had 100 media companies there, so he was doing interview after interview after interview. And so I got to say hi to him, but that was it at that event. But I did get an invitation to go to Necker Island and spend a week with him on Necker Island, which is the island that he bought that was for sale for $6 million that he bought for $125,000. He bought the island for $125,000. It was for sale for $6 million. And today the island's probably worth a couple $100 million or more. I don't know. He's built a lot of stuff on it. But Richard is intriguing. First of all, he's very down to earth. He's very present when he talks to you. He's very out of the box. He's an out of the box thinker, obviously. What's interesting is he built before the pandemic, he built 4 $2.2 billion cruise ships. $2.2 billion cruise ships. Now
that's right. I had forgot all about that.
Yeah.
Before the pandemic.
They're still losing $1 million a day on that. Now listen to this. I think on one ship they lose $1 million a day. If the two of us, Randy, decided we're going to start a cruise line and we built one $2.2 billion cruise ship, and we had 1,500 employees on that cruise ship and they all loved us, that would be a win. Just that. Yeah. He's got 4 of those, and that's one of 300 companies that he owns. So he runs and owns 300 companies. 300. The cruise ship company is 300. The cruise ship company is one of those. And when I was on there, I was on the cruise ship with him on his birthday party, with his family, with his staff from many of the different companies, a lot of his executives and some friends. And he just hung out with everybody for a full week, just hung out with everybody on the ship. You could sit down with them at any point, have a conversation. I had a few conversations with him while I was on the ship. The employees adore him, all of them. They adore him. They talk positively behind his back about him. They light up when they see him. It's incredible. He was, whether you like him or you hate him, Grant Cardone talks about money attracts attention and attention attracts money. Grant Cardone says that. Yeah. And Richard Branson is masterful. You mentioned this. He's masterful at promoting.
Yeah.
He likes to do stunts that everybody says this is not even possible. Yeah. And then like flying a balloon across the ocean, Yeah. And he risks his life. He's risked his life many times and beat the odds over and over and over again. His wife is hilarious. Because she just knows this is just how Richard is. Even at the age of 73, he just does things that other people would say, that's a stupid idea. Yeah. You're going to die. You're going to die. And he does it, Yeah. But it gets some media attention. And the truth is, I think he's a great example of being willing to fail in a big way. He just does so many things that a few of his wins pay for his losses and then some. Because a lot of his companies fail.
Because what made me think of this is he took part of Virgin Galactic and he formed a new company out of it called Virgin Orbit. And that was the division, because he doesn't want to launch the rockets from the ground. He takes them up on a plane and then he launches them off they release the rocket, it fuels up and it takes off in midair. He just basically, that company's bankrupt now, closed down, everybody's out of work.
So that was a great idea. He talked about that with a lot of passion when we were there. The idea was to mount a satellite where one of the engines would be on a 747, and then fly the 747 up to 50,000 feet, drop the satellite with a rocket on it, and fire it up into space, where he could, if the Russians, for example, knocked down one of our satellites, or North Korea, he could have a satellite back in space within one day to replace the satellite that got knocked down.
Right.
And he had a lot of government funding, but he needed a $121 million loan. Apparently, this is what the story is, and they couldn't get the loan. So they had to shut everything down, let all employees go. But that concerned me because it's a sister company to Virgin Galactic. And the stock tanked again. I mean, the stock is already in the toilet, but it tanked even lower to like $3 a share. It was as high as $60 a share. and that's the Virgin Galactic company. But they're saying that we're still supposed to, the end of this year, we're going to commence the daily scheduled civilian space travel at the end of this year. And from the time they start the program, I'll probably be about 2 years after that. So about 2 years after the time they start the program.
When you bought it originally, because this was a long time ago, I remember
6
you
years.
buying.
Yeah.
I thought it was even more. When were you scheduled to go up? Is this the
Well, there was
original date, or did it get moved back?
No, they never gave us a date, but they said it would probably be within 2 to 3 years. I mean, there's been people that have been in the program for 10 years that still haven't gone. Guys that signed up in their 70s that are now in their 80s. But the money, we can get our money back. Like, I could request my money back right now, minus 10%. It's been in escrow at Bank of America. So if I wanted to pull out of the program, I could, but one of my dreams is to go to space. So
yeah,
I'm gonna hang in there and see what happens. Yeah,
and I can't tell you, for your sake and for Richard's sake, I can't tell you how much I hope that happens. Really.
Thank you.
That would be, because that's one of my dreams, to go to space too.
It's his legacy. You know, he wants to leave a legacy of daily scheduled civilian orbital space travel. Yeah.
All right. Cool thing.
How about you? You got $250,000. You got $250,000 sitting in an account. Want to go to space?
I will go to space. I just don't think it would be with Richard's company because of his airline experience.
Yeah.
And I don't know, since I know you in the helicopters, I might be afraid to ever get on a plane with you. Right?
Hey, I wasn't holding the controls. I have proof.
All right. I know you have another thing you've got to get to. We definitely have to do this again, a volume 2 or volume 3 or volume 10. Any just final thoughts, last thing, whatever you want to say?
No, I guess the only thing I would, first of all, thank you. I really enjoyed this. I lost a little sleep last night going, what are Randy and I going to talk about for 2 hours? Like, we haven't had a conversation that's lasted 5 minutes in the past 20 years, right? We've never had a conversation that's lasted more than 5 minutes. And so I wondered, but the only thing I got to say is that, because I know there's a lot of people watching this, you know, Randy, you're in your 60s, I'm in my 60s, and we're still here. And there's, no matter where you are in your business, if you can just hold on to the hope that and the dream, just don't let go of the dream. Don't let your fears control you. And there's so many lessons from so many great entrepreneurs out there that as long as you just stay the course and don't quit on a bad day, you can make it. So yeah, that's what I'll leave you with. And Randy, again, you've inspired me. You've been a huge influence, positive influence on my career in this profession, and I want to thank you for that.
Well, I want to thank you for everything you're doing in our space and in space in general. And everybody watching, listening, remember, like, subscribe. We want to comment. Duplication Nation MLM podcast or Duplication Nation YouTube channel. New show every Wednesday. And this has turned into the PhD program of entrepreneurship, the PhD program of empowering leadership. And it's because of these people who come on with me every week. And Jordan, thank you for being the one this week. This was amazing. And I can't thank you enough.